Okay, so you've sent over some really heavy stuff for us to dig into today.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a tough one.
Absolutely.
We're looking into the death of 15-year-old Timothy Ferguson
Right.
in Norton Shores, Michigan.
Yep.
And this was back in July of 2022.
That's right.
And, we're going off the information you provided, which is mostly, you said a transcript from like a YouTube channel.
Yeah, the M7 Crime Storytime channel.
Yeah.
They did a really great job of covering it. And
Yeah, it seems like they really did a deep dive on this one.
a ton of information there.
Yeah.
So,
And just to give everybody a little bit of a roadmap, the initial report was that Timothy's mom, Shanda,
right.
ran...
And later Vander Ark.
Vander Ark, yeah, thank you. She had called 911 and said that he had fallen out of bed
Right.
and was unresponsive.
Yeah.
But like we were saying,
Yeah.
this is barely scratching the surface.
The very tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Very disturbing stuff.
Absolutely. And we're going to be looking at Shanda and her son, Paul,
Right.
and their involvement in this whole thing.
Yeah.
So...
It's going to be a tough one, but...
Yeah, it is. But, we're going to break down this transcript.
Yeah.
Try to understand what happened, the sequence of events. And
Yeah. How did we get from point A to point B?
Exactly. So the first responders get to the scene.
Right.
And right away, a couple of things are like...
Red flags.
Yeah, they're like, wait a second.
Yeah.
So they find Timothy in the basement.
Right.
And they say he's extremely frail.
Yeah, very thin.
His clothes are way too big for him.
Like they were falling off.
Yeah. And he's wearing an adult diaper.
Yeah.
And there's like this really strong smell of urine.
Yeah.
So right away, you're like...
So something's not right.
Something's off here.
Yeah.
So Shanda's like trying to explain all this.
Yeah.
And she says that Timothy had been on this hunger strike.
Right.
And she's saying this started after her husband, Adam, had a stroke.
In January of 2022.
Yeah.
So earlier that year.
Yeah, so earlier that year, her husband, Adam, has a stroke.
Right.
And she's saying because of that, Timothy went on this hunger strike.
Yep. And that it's not even the first time he's done something like this.
Right. She said this has happened before.
Yeah. Like whenever there's some family turmoil, he just stops eating.
It's like his coping mechanism or something.
Right.
So, but they also said that he was autistic.
Yes.
And that, sometimes kids on the spectrum,
right.
they're very particular.
Yeah, they have sensory issues.
Yeah, and so she's kind of using that to explain away
Yeah.
why he was so thin.
That nobody really noticed.
Yeah, she's like, oh, he didn't like to be touched.
Right.
He always wore baggy clothes.
Right.
So I couldn't really tell
Yeah.
that he was losing weight.
Right.
But there's this one little detail that really sticks out to me.
Oh, yeah.
They mention Shanda's younger son, Gabriel.
Okay.
And apparently Gabriel had noticed that Timothy...
Yeah, was getting really skinny. Oh, wow. And so it's like, okay, well, if he noticed...
Like, it was just a younger kid.
Yeah.
You'd think the mother would notice, too.
Yeah, and she had even asked Timothy to eat the night before.
Interesting.
So it's like...
So she knew.
Yeah, she knew.
She knew he was losing weight.
Yeah, so it's already kind of like...
Yeah, that story's not adding up.
No, it's
Right.
not adding up. And
Right.
then they start looking at the basement
Okay.
where Timothy was found.
Right.
And the layout is kind of strange.
Okay.
So Paul and Gabriel each had their own bedroom in the basement,
Okay.
but Timothy was sleeping
Right.
on a bunk bed
Okay.
in the common area.
So not even his own room.
Yeah, so right away you're like,
Yeah, what's going on there?
yeah, what's going on? Why doesn't he
Yeah.
have his own space?
Right.
And then they find this cupboard.
Okay.
And this is where it gets
Oh, boy.
really disturbing.
Yeah.
So inside this cupboard,
Right.
they find an alarm. An alarm?
Like a security alarm?
Yeah.
And a camera.
Okay.
And they said the smell of urine was, like, overwhelming.
Okay, so this is more than just like a storage cupboard.
This
Like
is... Yeah, and on the floor,
Right.
there's this blue tarp
Okay.
and a cardboard box.
Like he was sleeping in there.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So that's really bad.
And then they also find metal handcuffs.
Handcuffs.
Yeah.
So we're talking restraints.
Yeah, and this is in a desk drawer.
Okay.
So by this point, it's like, okay, the hunger strike story.
Yeah, that's out the window.
Yeah, that's completely out the window.
Yeah.
And then they go into the bathroom
Okay.
in the basement.
Right.
And there's used adult diapers on the floor.
Okay.
And there's a motion sensor camera
A camera.
pointed at the shower,
What?
which didn't even have a curtain.
Oh, my gosh. And
So they're monitoring him, even in the shower.
Yeah, it seems that way.
That's so creepy.
I know. And then they find a bottle of hot sauce
Hot sauce.
in the bathroom.
What?
Among all the other, like, shampoos and stuff.
So random.
Yeah. And it seems random at first.
Right.
But it's going to come up again.
Okay.
And it's going to be really disturbing.
Okay, so given all of that, they obviously had to do an autopsy.
Oh, yeah, at this point.
Right.
They have to find out what happened.
Yeah, what's the cause of death?
Exactly. So the autopsy, they determined that Timothy was 5'6".
Okay.
But he only weighed 69 pounds.
That is so tiny for a 15-year-old boy.
Yeah, he was like half
Wow.
what he should have weighed.
That's awful.
And they said the cause of death was dehydration,
Okay.
malnutrition,
Mm-hmm.
and hypothermia.
Hypothermia.
Yeah, like his body temperature
Yeah.
was too low.
So this wasn't something that just happened overnight. This was a long process of neglect.
Yeah, this was like a long time coming.
Yeah.
And they ruled it a homicide.
Okay, so this wasn't an accident.
This was no accident.
Yeah. Not a sudden illness.
No, the medical examiner was very clear.
Right.
This was because of the conditions he was living in for a prolonged period of time.
So they suspected abuse pretty early on then.
Yeah, and the thing is, like you said, we've got all these red flags.
Right.
But they needed more.
Yeah, they needed to figure out, like, what exactly happened,
Yeah.
who was responsible.
And thankfully, they got a lot of information
Okay.
from Shanda's younger son, Gabriel.
Okay.
So they interview Gabriel,
Right.
and he starts telling them things that completely contradict
Okay.
what Shanda and Paul had been saying.
So he was a key witness.
Oh, yeah. Gabriel's interview was huge.
Wow.
So he starts describing these, like, really messed up punishments.
Like what kind of punishments?
He said that, if he tried to sneak Timothy any food or water,
Right.
he would get in trouble.
Oh, God.
He'd be called a bad boy.
And what would they do to him?
They would give him hot sauce.
What?
Yeah.
Like make him eat it? Oh, that's awful.
And he also said that Shanda was like the one in control.
Right.
Like she controlled everything.
Wow.
The food, the punishments.
Like he had no say.
No.
In his own life.
No, and they were using cameras
Yeah.
to watch Timothy.
Oh my gosh, so creepy.
I know. And Gabriel even said that he thought
Yeah.
one of Shanda's punishments is what killed Timothy.
Oh, wow.
He said that he was in his small room.
Right, which we know now is that cupboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So awful. And they found that micro SD card.
Right, from the camera in the closet?
Yeah. And this is where it gets like really bad.
Okay.
So the police are able to get the footage off of that SD card.
And
it shows Shanda putting Timothy in that cupboard
oh my God.
onto that blue tarp.
Yeah.
He's only wearing a shirt and a diaper.
Wow.
And you can hear her in the video.
What was she saying?
She's yelling at him for like misbehaving.
Oh gosh.
And then like 15 minutes later, she comes back.
Okay.
And she starts yelling at him again.
For what?
For breathing through his mouth.
What?
Yeah. She's like, you need to breathe through your nose.
Oh my gosh.
And at this point, he seems like he's not even responding.
So he's like barely conscious and she's yelling at him?
Yeah. And she even covers his mouth.
Oh my God.
And like,
this is so hard to hear.
I know. And then he just stops breathing.
In the video.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So this video just completely destroys Shanda's story.
Right.
It proves that she was lying.
Right.
And so she's immediately arrested.
Right.
And charged with open murder.
Open murder.
Yeah. So that means they're not specifying the degree yet.
Right.
But they're saying that it was murder and child abuse.
Wow. So at this point, she's in big trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Paul's still out there.
Okay.
And he does some really weird stuff.
Like what?
He posts on social media saying that they're doing good.
What?
Yeah.
Like after his mom's been arrested for murder?
Yeah.
That's so bizarre.
I know.
And insensitive?
Yeah.
So what happened next?
So then the police, they get a hold of Paul's phone records.
Okay.
And they see all these texts between him and his mom.
Yeah.
And the texts show that they've been working together.
Oh, wow.
To abuse Timothy.
So it wasn't just her?
No, it was both of them.
This is really bad.
Yeah.
So what did the texts say?
So they were texting about different punishments.
Okay.
So there's this one called the mouth treatment.
Mouth treatment.
Yeah. And based on what Gabriel said,
right,
we think that was the hot sauce.
Oh, God.
They would also feed him bread soaked in hot sauce.
What?
Make him vomit.
Oh.
And they even put hot sauce on his genitals.
What? That's awful.
I know. It's just...
That's torture.
It's horrific.
It's inhumane.
Yeah.
So with all of that,
yeah,
they bring Paul back in for questioning.
Yeah.
So.
And this time he changes his story.
Okay, so what does he say now?
He says that the hunger strike
was
all a lie.
So he admits that they made that up.
Yeah, he said Shanda told him to lie to the police.
Wow.
And he gives this whole new story.
What's the new story?
He says that he found Timothy unresponsive in the closet.
Okay.
And that he and Shanda tried to revive him.
Okay, but even that story doesn't make sense.
Right.
Because they were saying he fell out of bed.
Right, like, why was he in the closet?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what else did he say?
So then they show him this text that he sent to Shanda.
Okay.
Like a month before Timothy died.
And what did it say?
He was saying that Timothy was looking like a skeleton.
Oh, wow.
And that he needed more food.
So he knew.
Yeah, but Shanda ignored him.
Oh, my God.
And Paul also admits that Shanda was using those two-way speakers.
The ones she installed throughout the house?
Yeah.
To tell him how to punish Timothy.
Oh, my God.
So she could be like anywhere in the house.
Wow.
And tell him what to do.
That's so controlling.
Yeah. So, and then he makes this huge confession.
He says that he forced Timothy into an ice bath.
What?
Yeah.
An ice bath?
Oh, my God.
And he kept him in there for 9 hours.
9 hours?
The day before he died.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
So that explains the hypothermia.
Exactly.
Oh, my God, that poor kid.
So because of all this, they charged him with first-degree child abuse.
Okay.
And he takes a plea deal.
Oh, so he's going to testify against Shanda?
Yeah, in exchange for a lighter sentence.
Wow.
So
he testifies, and what does he say?
So he says that Shanda was the ringleader.
Right, the one calling the shot.
Yeah, he said he was just following orders.
Oh, wow.
But he does admit that, when Timothy first came to live with them, he was a healthy kid.
Yeah.
But that after Adam had the stroke,
Shanda
started restricting his food.
Like how?
She put locks on the pantry and the fridge.
Wow. So he had no access to food?
No.
Unless they gave it to him.
Right.
Wow.
And he also testifies about that ice bath. And he says that Shanda told him to keep Timothy uncomfortable.
Oh, my God.
And he said that Shanda stopped giving Timothy his medication.
Oh, wow.
And she wouldn't take him to the doctor anymore.
Oh, my gosh.
And basically kept him locked in the house.
So he was completely isolated.
Yeah. And he said the hunger strike was a total lie.
Yeah.
He said she made that up.
Right.
And he describes all these other awful punishments.
Like what?
Like making him run up and down the stairs.
Oh, God.
Making him clean the garage in just a diaper.
What?
Yeah.
That's so humiliating.
Yeah, and making him stand facing a wall.
Oh, God.
For like hours.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. And he said that sometimes she would handcuff him.
Oh, God.
Or zip tie him.
What?
Yeah, and that he was only allowed to go to the bathroom.
Right.
If they said he could.
So they were controlling every aspect of his life.
Yeah, and he had to drink hot sauce.
Oh, God, not the hot sauce again.
Yeah.
That's awful.
And sometimes she would make him drink it before he could eat his food.
That's so cruel.
Yeah.
So
Paul's up there telling all of this.
Yeah.
And he admits that, sometimes he was concerned about Timothy.
Yeah.
But that he didn't love him enough.
What?
To do anything about it.
Oh, my God.
And he even said that.
Yeah.
Like a little while before Timothy died.
Okay.
He made him like a real meal.
Oh, wow.
And hid it from Shanda.
So he knew it was wrong.
Yeah.
But he still did it.
Yeah, he was still like
wow.
complicit in all of it.
So what about Shanda? What was her defense?
So her lawyers tried to argue that she was like dissociating.
Yeah. Like mentally checking out.
Yeah. And they said it was because of PTSD.
From her husband's stroke.
Yeah. And they were saying that she was having blackout.
Oh, so she couldn't remember what happened?
Yeah. And that she couldn't remember a lot of this stuff.
Okay, so she's blaming it on her mental state.
Yeah. And she also claimed that her ex-husband had Timothy's medical card.
Oh, so she couldn't take him to the doctor,
No.
even if she wanted to.
Right.
Wow.
And her explanations for the cameras and the locks.
Yeah. Why were those there?
They didn't make any sense.
Like, what did she say?
So first she said that it was because Timothy's stepmom was worried about him getting into stuff.
Okay.
But then she changed her story.
And what did she say then?
She said it was to stop him from eating raw chicken nuggets.
Raw chicken nuggets?
Yeah.
That doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, it's like...
And the cameras in the bathroom?
Right.
Like, come on.
Yeah, and then she said she didn't remember sending those texts to Paul. But she did admit to lying about feeding Timothy the night before he died.
Okay.
And she admitted to threatening to take him to the hospital if he didn't eat.
Which is just another form of abuse.
Right.
Like threatening him with medical care.
Yeah.
That's awful.
And she said that she was keeping him awake as a punishment.
What?
Yeah.
Like sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
That's torture.
Yeah, and then she said that she gave him a warm bath.
A warm bath.
Yeah, the night before he died.
But she never mentioned that before.
No, this is like a brand new detail.
So she's making stuff up as she goes along.
Yeah, and then when they showed her the autopsy photos,
oh gosh,
she like started crying and getting sick. But it's like,
yeah, it's a little late for that.
Yeah, it's like, where was that compassion before?
Right.
So
what did the jury think?
The jury was not buying it.
Yeah.
They only deliberated for like an hour.
Wow.
And they found her guilty.
Wow.
Of first-degree felony murder.
Wow.
And first-degree child abuse.
Wow.
And Paul, of course, had already pleaded guilty.
Right.
First-degree child abuse.
Yeah.
And so Shanda was sentenced to life in prison.
Wow.
And Timothy's other siblings, Nolan and Millie,
yeah,
they gave these really powerful victim impact statements.
Oh, God.
And they basically said that she should never be allowed out.
Right. She deserves to be in prison for what she did.
Yeah. And the Judge Cassell,
right,
he basically told Shanda that, you can't hide from this anymore.
Yeah.
Justice has been served.
Yeah. Right.
And
so what about Paul?
So Paul was sentenced to 30 to 100 years
wow.
in prison.
That's a long time.
Yeah. And the judge was like really concerned about Paul.
Yeah.
Because he said that he didn't seem to have any empathy.
Oh, wow.
And he was worried that he could be a danger to the public.
Right.
He even said that he was like one step away from being a psychopath.
Oh, my God.
Like his mother.
Wow. So.
That's a harsh assessment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really heavy stuff.
It is.
And that YouTube video you sent,
yeah.
it's really hard to watch.
Like that?
Like the things they did to Timothy.
Yeah.
It's just.
Inhumane.
Yeah.
So this has been.
It's been really difficult to go through all of this.
Yeah, it's a lot to process.
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder how this could happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, like how could nobody notice
right.
that this was going on?
Yeah. They were going to school, presumably, like doctors.
Yeah, like how did nobody see what was happening?
And what about their dad?
Right, like where was he in all of this?
Yeah, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, and it makes you think about like, what can we do
to
prevent this from happening again?
Yeah. As a society, like, what are our responsibilities?
Yeah. Are we doing enough to protect kids?
Especially vulnerable kids?
Yeah.
Like Timothy, this case is just a really awful example of what can happen when people abuse their power.
Yeah. And when people just don't care about other human beings.
Yeah.
It's really
heartbreaking.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking.
So thank you for bringing this to us.
Yeah.
It's important to talk about these things.
It is.
Even though they're hard.
Yeah.
It's important to remember Timothy.
Yeah.
And to make sure that something like this
never
happens again. Absolutely. Thank you for listening, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us.